There's nothing like a nice, brisk morning drive in a very scenic area on a very amazing road. And what better way to experience something like this than in a sports car? Well, the last video I did was more in line with SUV assessments and evaluations and some of the vehicles that I have in my fleet now. One of those being the Mercedes-Benz GLC350e. But I kind of went on to say that there are things about it that I loved, things about it that I didn't, and that overall it was a good car. Well, since that video, I've had some experiences with that car that have led me to change my perspective and also change my driving experience. That's right, I've swapped the GLC out for something completely different, not even close in terms of the way that it delivers efficiency and all that stuff, which in this day and age, that's kind of what everything is about, right? Can you get more efficiency with everything else you have? Electrification, plug-in electric hybrid, and it's a very logical direction, but I think for some of us, there's a performance element that we just cannot live without. And as I was looking at what my alternatives were to changing from that vehicle to another, I did look at other electric vehicles, still in the German premium space, but nothing really just ticked the boxes the way that I felt I wanted them to be ticked, which took me in a whole different direction. And as I was doing my search, I came across something that I had not expected to come across, nor did I expect that I would purchase. I've swapped the GLC out, hint, hint, for something along the lines of a BMW. Which BMW though, right? Well, it's a very unlikely candidate. It's something I considered way back when I first started looking at a new SUV when I left the organization that gave me a company car. And for whatever reason at that time, I was not inclined to purchase it. But at that time, there was not this option, which is the X2 M35. What efficiency? You're not talking efficiency anymore. No, not really. We're talking activity. We're talking a little bit of utility. As you can see, this is a very small, UV or whatever you want to call it. It's not even an SUV. It's not even a CUV. This is a sport activity vehicle. Think of it more like a GTI with a little higher ride height. It does ride a bit higher than most of your hatches, and I think that's probably what it's most akin to, is a hatch, because it has a hatch. But it's built on the X1 frame. And when I look at this, yeah, I see a little X1, but if you look at this roof line, this thing is really low. I mean, these windows look like they've been modified like in a hot rod, when they chop the top, shorten the windows. Very, very short windows. The height of this thing is actually shorter than the Kia that I had, the Hamster Mobile. That was a pretty short, low vehicle height, but this thing is really low. And that's okay. It puts it closer to the ground. This, being the M, has a lower ride height than the X2 X or S28i, which has the lower output engine. This is actually rated at 300 plus horsepower. I've seen a bunch of different numbers. It's 305 with one reviewer, it's 301 with another, it's 302, blah, 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 blah. But the one consistent is the 332 pound-foot torque. That is tremendous. I used to have a 335i, and that thing put out at the time 300 horsepower, 300 pound-foot torque. Very impressive. 6-cylinder, twin turbocharged. 4-cylinder, turbocharged. And this thing is maniacal. X-drive, meaning it has all-wheel drive. That's very, I think, beneficial if you're going to have an activity vehicle, utility vehicle, whatever it is that it'll be. And I think just for this vehicle, you wouldn't want that in a front-wheel configuration. So that's kind of the only way they could have done it. The other thing about this vehicle, it has a very, very sporting tire setup. They put Pirelli P0s on this thing. This is not a utility vehicle tire. Look at this thing. It's a high performance sport tire. It's not that wide. The rim is probably only about 8.5 inches. I'd love a bigger one on the back, obviously, and we will see about that, but I do like the rims. But built on that platform of the X1, so different from the X1. I've looked at X1s. I didn't love them. I saw a few that had the M package. Had they put the M35 package on it, we might have been talking a different outcome. But anyway, a huge departure from what I was in the Mercedes. Clearly. So that's kind of where I'm at. This is not the full review of this vehicle. I just wanted to introduce you to changes in my life. Happens a lot. I change a lot, but I thought I'd be done with the Mercedes. And so just to take you through the Mercedes situation, after I did the last video on it, I ran into some issue where, and it was a certified pre-owned, so it wasn't brand new, but it was new enough that the word issue should not be associated with it, right? But that's just the way the automotive market is. Anyway, there was some issue with my transmission. It was making a very clunking sound when I'd come to a stop. And it was the deceleration of the engine through the transmission that was causing this clunking. It almost sounded like the transmission was going to fall out of the damn car. And I took it in, they took a look at it. I had to actually drive around with someone to prove that it was really happening. Because you know how it is. You take your car in, they can't seem to find whatever the problem is because it won't do it for other people, only for you. I don't know, kind of like, you know, some possessed vehicle. Anyway, it manifested itself clearly. And I knew what to do to make sure that it did. And the result was, hey, your transmission mounts or something to the effect of, I heard the words missing. And I'm thinking certified pre-owned, Mercedes, less than 2 years old or 2 years old. How the hell is that possible? Had 20-something thousand miles on it. Got that resolved. And it was better. And I tried to make it happen again after they fixed it. Then one day, randomly, the temperature light came on and said, hey, your engine's overheating, pull over. And I'm like, I'm driving 40 miles per hour. Miss Daisy could be in the back. Turned the car off, turned it back on, it was gone. Okay, weird. The other thing that really drove me nuts about that vehicle was the fact that the technology, it was inconsistent. I talked about that with the Volvo and how we felt that that thing was not up to par the way it should have been based on the way that they presented it and what they put together for that vehicle, the XC90. This thing would actually, I don't know if it was doing updates in the background or what was going on, but every couple of months to 3 months, I'd have to reset all my satellite radio stations. And look, that's a real big problem in the world, right? No, it isn't. However, if I get in my car and I've preset these stations because it's so cumbersome to get to them, if you have satellite radio, you know that if you want to find your station, if you don't favorite it, you got to search through or know the exact number for what it is, or know the exact, or hope that when you type it in, it pulls it up accurately. The problem is that that's a waste of time. The whole point of presetting is so you don't have to do that shit. I got to go to work. I need to get there in 15 minutes. I don't have time to do that. I do want to hear my favorite tunes, but I don't have time to be searching through this shit every now and then because the car decided that it's going to flash everything. So it would happen a lot. And I went in and said, hey, this is happening and anything you can do about it. Oh, we updated your software. And I'm like, I think that's the problem. It does an update on its own and it just wipes the thing. So that wiped it yet again. And I'm just like, what's so difficult about doing this? Kia didn't have a problem doing it. When I had my Soul GT, there were no problems like that with that vehicle. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't experiencing that kind of inconsistency and, say, lack of quality in the tech bill. So anyway, there were a lot of things that were adding up on that vehicle that just didn't add up. Like the fuel electric range was pretty shitty. All right. Other than the fact that I could use the electric to circumvent using fuel if I didn't have much or I just didn't want to use fuel, I could use the electric, but it was only for 14, 15 miles. And most of the time, I started to notice that it was dropping off. Maybe it was the weather. I don't know. But it would say 11. So it'd go from 14 to 11. Now I don't have actually 14, 15. I got 11. And that started to be a problem because I could go to work, come home, I need to charge again. So it was every day I'd have to charge it. I know, first world major problem. No, not really. But that's kind of not the benefit I was looking for. Fuel-wise, consumption when driving, it didn't really give me a whole lot. Having that electric range, having that hybrid element, the engine being able to stop while I'm on cruise, on the freeway or whatever, that was great. I did a trip in this car that I did a lot in my GLC, and what I found immediately was the GLC wasn't really doing much in the efficiency game. Like, I think Mercedes presented that just as an opportunity to showcase we can do electric hybrid as well. Great. I love that I had that. It gave me carpool access. Those are the two major benefits of that vehicle. That's it. I also had an issue with my seat ripping. There was a little bitty small rip just from getting in and out of it. When I get out of the car, because of the way the seat was raised, I would rub one spot. That spot basically broke open less than 6 months into ownership. It was small, then it got bigger, not covered under the warranty. So that was another issue. So I had to put a seat cover on it. Luckily, I found a tasteful one. But again, build quality. I'm starting to see these inconsistencies in build quality. Back to that fuel comparison. Same trip that I was doing in the GLC I did with this vehicle. I got 420 miles on a full tank of gas. Basically, I did that trip down and back on a half a tank, where it took me well over 3/4 of a tank in the Mercedes, plus the electric range. I did it twice and still had some left. And I'm like, what? How the hell? In the Eco Pro mode, absolutely astounding. I got the same trip in half a tank of gas as it took me over 3/4 of a tank plus electric to do in the Mercedes. So clearly that was not an efficiency story, which leads me even more to validate this vehicle for me, because if I can get that kind of range out of it, why do I need an electric? I don't. You know what I did need? Performance, because that car did not have any. Not really. For 310 plus horsepower output, electric and engine combined, over, I think the numbers on the torque was well over 390 pound-foot. And it still took it over 6 seconds to get from 0 to 60. I don't know what's wrong with that story, but those numbers don't add up. 300 whatever horsepower, 330 something pound-foot torque, 0 to 60, somewhere between 4.7, 4.9. That's what I hear. Kind of like the same thing with the power output. Everybody's saying different shit. I haven't tested it myself to validate one way or the other, but I'm gonna just tell you right now, my E46 M3, it's kind of where it lives. So that's pretty impressive for a 4-cylinder to begin with. But for a vehicle this size, and I'm just gonna say right now, I like the shit out of this vehicle. The things that it doesn't have, I'll get into that in the full review. But for right now, it has my attention, it has my check, and it has my approval. Till the next video update, all-wheel drive. Peace out.